strictness. He was a very, very peculiar habits, such as dressing up in women's clothes and wearing his wife's, nylons and underwear and things like that.
Marvin had his share of highs and lows, but what secrets was he keeping before his heartbreaking end? Let's dig into the emotional twists behind the music icon's untold story.
When I was a child, I used to hear music constantly. I long for...
Marvin grew up in a tough spot with his dad, Marvin Gaye Sr., a preacher, and his mom, Alberta, who worked as a housekeeper. He was the second of 4 kids, with 2 sisters and a brother, Frankie. Home life wasn't exactly a walk in the park. The family squeezed into a tiny apartment in a rundown housing project called the Fairfax Apartments. The place was falling apart. No electricity, no running water, just rough living all around. Marvin and his crew nicknamed the neighborhood Simple City because it was like city life mashed up with the middle of nowhere. Marvin's dad didn't mess around. He ruled the house with an iron fist, and Marvin took the brunt of it. He once said living with his dad felt like being stuck under a harsh king. Luckily, his mom had his back. She was his biggest supporter, always there to lift him up and fuel his love for music.
His father was very strict with the kids, about when they could go out and when they had to be in, what they could wear. The girls weren't allowed to wear makeup, and he had very strong feelings against secular pop music.
Marvin started singing in church when he was just a little kid, with his dad on the piano. The church had some super strict rules, but for Marvin, music was pure joy. One school play changed everything. He sang Be My Love, and the crowd was blown away. That's when it hit him. Singing could actually be his thing.
Marvin's family were quite different because his father belonged to this church called the House of God, which was a black holiness church, but with a rather unusual twist because it had a very strong emphasis on the Old Testament, and it was a mixture of sort of Christianity and Judaism in some ways.
When Marvin stepped into the music scene, he was determined to shake off his dad's grip. But behind the fame, his personal life was messy and full of drama. Take his first marriage, for example. He tied the knot with Anna Gordy, Berry Gordy's sister. Yep, the Motown boss himself. Anna was quite a bit older than Marvin, and the couple had a tough time starting a family. They ended up adopting a baby boy, Marvin III. Here's where it gets complicated. Turns out the baby's biological mom, Denise Gordy, was Anna's niece, and just 16 when she had him. And as if that wasn't enough to stir things up, later on, it came out in a book by Michael Eric Dyson, Mercy, Mercy Me, that Marvin himself was the child's biological father. The whole situation was seriously jaw-dropping. Denise was underage when Marvin got involved with her, and he kept it under wraps for years, probably because coming clean could have landed him in some serious trouble. While Marvin never officially admitted he was Marvin III's dad, the truth eventually came out, and it definitely stirred up plenty of drama. Marvin and Anna stuck it out for a while, but their marriage was far from smooth sailing. In an interview with David Ritz for Rolling Stone, Marvin opened up saying, "There was a lot of love between us and we really needed each other. But I wasn't the kind of guy you could pin down. Not by a wife, a manager, or even a record label. I was born to do my own thing." After 12 rocky years, Anna called it quits and filed for divorce in 1975. The alimony bills were way more than Marvin could handle. A year later, drowning in debt, allegedly owing Anna $600,000 and stuck with unpaid taxes, Marvin filed for bankruptcy. Things went downhill fast. To settle up, he worked out a deal. The first $307,000 he owed Anna would come from the royalties of his next album, and the remaining $293,000 would be paid off with royalties from future releases. His second shot at marriage was with Janice Hunter, who was much younger than him. They had 2 kids, but things fell apart, and by 1979, they'd split. This left Marvin buried in debt, including alimony for both ex-wives. Not exactly the best situation to be in, and the messy divorces didn't help. But somehow, Marvin turned all that chaos into inspiration for an album that would help chip away at those hefty payments. Marvin wasn't in the best headspace when he started working on What's Going On. His marriage to Anna Gordy had crashed. Marvin couldn't shake the feeling that he was bad luck for his duet partners. First, there was Mary Wells, but she left Motown after their collab. Then came Kim Weston, and while their track It Takes Two blew up, she also walked away from the label not long after. It takes two, baby. It takes two. Next up was Oma Hurd, though she was often mislabeled as Oma Page on records. Despite being a seasoned pro, most of her duets with Marvin were shelved, with only one single ever seeing the light of day. But it was Marvin's pairing with Tammy Terrell in 1966 that truly hit gold. They churned out hit after hit, but tragically, Tammy passed away in 1970 from a brain tumor. This loss shook Marvin to his core, leaving him haunted by the thought he might be a curse. "Marvin was in a really dark place before What's Going On," said his friend, NFL star Mel Farr. "He was just locked in his house for ages." Marvin was getting deep into drugs, trying to numb the pain. The news was weighing on him too, especially the Kent State shooting where the National Guard killed 4 students just months after Tammy's death. He said, "I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop crying," in an interview later, adding that he was just completely fed up with life. When he spoke to Disc and Music Echo in 1971, he admitted, "I was totally disillusioned with everything."
And all that.
Because he was on drugs?
He fell out with me buy some money to buy some drugs.
Oh, that's what it was over?
Yeah.
Okay. What was Marvin on? Was it cocaine or something?
Drugs really took a toll on Marvin. Back in the 60s, he dabbled with coke, but by the 70s, he was fully addicted. People close to him said he'd switch between reading the Bible and doing coke, a wild mix that showed just how much he was struggling inside. His addiction didn't stop there. He also got into PCP, a drug that messes with your mind in serious ways. It wasn't long before his mental health spiraled, and in 1983, Marvin even tried to end his life twice. He was drowning in money problems. He owed over $1 million to the IRS, $600,000 to California, and still had to pay more than $300,000 in alimony. Things got way too heavy, so he bailed on the U.S. and headed to London, hoping a change of scenery would help. But nope, he just fell back into the same party-hard, drug-fueled lifestyle. Nothing got better, so he packed up again and moved to Belgium. He then started to pull himself together in Belgium, thanks to a Belgian businessman named Freddie Coussert, who had his back and helped him get back to music. While there, he recorded Sexual Healing, which turned out to be one of his biggest hits and put him back in the limelight. But even with that comeback, Marvin couldn't shake his financial mess. His debts were still a huge weight, and his personal life was far from sorted.
Were you noticing the drug use and kind of his decline and so forth around that time?
I was with Marvin damn near every day, man. Yeah, was I noticing it? Yeah. No, yeah, I was definitely noticing it.
The drama with Motown reached a whole new level when they dropped Gaye's album In Our Lifetime without getting his approval. First off, they messed with the title by taking out a crucial question mark. To Marvin, that question mark was everything. It was the entire point of the album, asking, "Is the world coming to an end in our lifetime?" Then, they had the nerve to tweak the production on tracks like Far Cry, a song he felt was still a work in progress. He was pissed. It felt like Motown was trying to take control of his artistic vision and releasing it without his say. That was the final straw for him. In 1983, Marvin Gaye dropped a major bombshell. Going on tour might actually be the end of him. With his money problems and huge tax debt, he had no choice but to hit the road and make some cash. So he kicked off the Sexual Healing Tour in San Diego, hoping it would pull him out of the hole. But instead, it just made everything worse. Rocking a red military-style outfit with shiny gold buttons, now chilling at the Motown Museum, Marvin looked like a total star on stage. But behind the scenes, he was falling apart. His health was tanking, physically and mentally. The pressure from the tour started messing with Marvin's head. He got super paranoid, convinced people were out to get him. He even hired bodyguards, not for the show, but because he genuinely feared for his life. He made his sister bring him water on stage because he thought someone might poison him. It got so bad that every new city felt like it could be his last show. The stress really took its toll. He collapsed from exhaustion in Florida and ended up in the hospital. Marvin couldn't take it anymore, so he called it quits and headed home. But that didn't bring any peace. It just dragged up more family drama. Instead of giving him a break, the tour only made things worse, pushing him deeper into a dark place. Let's circle back to Marvin's dad for a bit. According to a lot of people, he's the villain in Marvin's story.
His strictness, he was a very peculiar habits, such as dressing up in women's clothes and wearing his wife's, nylons and underwear and things like that.
Marvin Gaye's childhood was pretty messed up thanks to his dad, Marvin Gaye Sr., who was a strict Pentecostal preacher. The guy ruled the house with tough rules and harsh punishments. But it wasn't just the discipline that messed with Marvin. His dad had his own issues. Marvin's sister, Zeola, revealed that their dad secretly wore women's clothes and had a serious drinking problem. When he wasn't drinking, he could be somewhat kind. But when he was, he turned cold and bitter. Some family members didn't think he was all bad, but for Marvin, the damage from his childhood never went away. When Marvin came back to the family home, his dad had just been on a trip to Washington, D.C. After that, their relationship was as tense as ever. Marvin's sisters eventually left because of the constant tension. In a 1985 interview, Marvin's sister Jean recalled that their dad used to threaten Marvin, saying that if his son ever laid a hand on him, he'd end up killing him. In an interview, Jean also revealed that there was no doubt Marvin was really struggling. He'd even given his dad a gun a few months earlier, thinking it would protect him from intruders. But one day, things got out of hand. Marvin tried to break up a fight between his parents. But when his dad started yelling at his mom, Marvin shoved him down and started hitting him. His mom, Alberta, later said that Marvin didn't stop until she screamed for him to. Things took a tragic turn when Marvin Sr. came back with the gun his son had bought him. He shot Marvin twice in the chest. Marvin's brother, Frankie, and his wife heard the gunshots and rushed to the scene. Frankie later said that Marvin's last words were, "I got what I wanted. I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it." He also said Marvin felt like he had ended his pain and helped his mom by getting his dad out of the picture. Some family members believe Marvin wanted his dad to do it, like it was his way of finally getting peace.